There are moments in our podcaster's life that define who he is.
What did you say your name was again?
L.
Shawn Windsor.
It's never gonna last.
Let's just enjoy it while we can.
Soul of Detroit.
You ass interrogator, try to get out of my face. Gone.
What are you doing?
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Albert?
Hey kids, it's your old pal ML Elric coming to you with a very special guest, a gentleman I met last week at Comerica Park. His name is Matt Bissonette. He is the bass player for Elton John and some other amazing acts, which we're going to get into in just a minute. But I have to tell you, when we met, it was electric. It was a lot like when Brian Wilson performed and saw his wife from the Honeys. When everybody saw he was looking out in the crowd, she knew he was looking only at her. And I was there in the 14th row. Yeah, exactly. I was there in the 14th row with John Rutherford of the Caju Cafe, and I said, that Bissonette guy, I think we got some Motor City magic here. And so I reached out to him, and here he is with us on the road from Boston. Matt Bissonette, Maestro, how are you? Good to see you.
Great. Thanks for having me on your cool show. Very, very cool. Nice to be here.
So we unfortunately have Marc and Shawn and Patrick, so apologies in advance for that. But
I've only known them for a couple of minutes, but I got nothing but good things to say about these lads.
See, he likes us better than you do, ML.
He's different than you are already.
Well, I, based on ML's intro, I just want to know right off the bat, can you pick people out of the crowd while you're playing up on stage, especially in a venue like Comerica or MetLife or where you're going to be playing at Gillette?
It's kind of interesting because like in a lot of places we play, it's, like inside, so it's dark right away and you can't really, when you can see people's faces from the lights and stuff. But these shows were starting around 7:00, so it's pretty light out, so you can really see everybody, and then it gets darker and darker, and then you kind of lose it a little bit. But it's kind of nice this way because you can actually see people's faces and their responses, whether they like it or hate it, so it's kind of...
I think that was Matt's way of trying to question my story, which obviously was unimpeachable. So
we were deadlocked, man. We had that thing going on.
Yeah, sorry if I missed you up on that one tune when I, flashed the rock and roll.
It was one of many that I made that happens every night. Mistakes are something that Elton actually likes, so it's kind of cool.
Well, I just saw Rocket Man last night. It seems like he's made a few mistakes over the years, but I have to tell you, John Reed, I don't know if you've ever met him before, biggest dick in the world. If I'm John Reed and I watch Rocket Man, I'm like, I'm going to get that Elton John. I mean, my wife it's about midnight. She's like ready to go to Scotland and try and kill this guy. And I said, I think Elton did okay. He's past that. Can we get past it too? But
did you say that he's got the biggest, or
No.
like he's a big asshole?
It's a very sophisticated show. You have to watch the movie. You have to be prepared.
I'm sorry. When did the intern start talking this early?
When did Shawn start talking this early? I mean,
I had good energy before the show.
Yeah, but
Sorry, Matt.
Tell us a little
Usually
bit.
all Mike.
Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this, because I know it's been a long way from Warren, Michigan to Elton John with a lot of great stops in between. But I mean, you're a dude who obviously has got some chops. Went to school for music, and then went to college, and then hit the road. How common is that as a career path?
Well, it's kind of weird because music is so different now. I mean, I don't know the path that people are taking and how it works so much for younger people now. But, when we were growing up, music was just everything. It was like you'd turn on your AM radio, Dick Burton, and you'd be listening to everything on the radio, from Weather Report to Chicago to, Earth, Wind, and Fire. I mean, it was just a smorgasbord of music. So Greg and I, my brother Greg, who's a drummer, we just both started playing really early and just had our heads to the radio all the time. So we just tried to learn all the different styles. And by the time I always tell the story about my dad. My dad was a drummer, and he he hired me to play on his wedding band. That he played 2 gigs a week at Romo Hall there on wherever Romo Hall was. And when I was about 13 years old, he bought me a tuxedo and just said, "You're going to make $50 a night. Let's get in the van and let's go and play." And so it's been nothing but work and playing since I was a little kid. So went through high school and junior high school and started learning how to read and play jazz and different things. But, being in Detroit, it was always the rock and roll, So we had our own band that we called Grand Circus Park, and it was kind of a Chicago cover band. And we tried to call the band Chicago 2. We had Chicago jerseys written on us, but that didn't work because that would have taken us to jail. So we built at Grand Circus Park because my mom used to work at the Broadwalk Towers there, right where I was walking around last week when we played Comerica. I went to the building where my mom worked for 35 years, and I used to drive her there every day and, to work so I could have her car and to take to school and stuff. So being from Detroit, it's just kind of in your system, the rock and roll and every style of music. So it just kind of turned into college. I went to North Texas State for about 2.5 years and then got called to go out with Maynard Ferguson in 1981. Started playing jazz, started traveling the world around 1981. I've just been on the road ever since then. So the road to Elton was, a lot of different bands and different things and opportunities. And, I think God always blessed me with something because I'm not very good at anything else besides music. It's kind of like, I don't know what I would be doing without music. So thank God it all worked out and rolled into this thing. The gig with Elton came about with the passing of Bob Birch, who was the bass player who played before me, a really good friend of mine. He used to be my college, high school teacher at Mott High School. And he would be the band director there with Bill Baker. And Bob passed away, and then they called me up to take his place. And that was 11 years ago, I think, 2012, so 10 years ago. So it's been out here for 10 years now. So
were you intimidated at all? You had played with so many people and toured with so many people, but is Elton John a different level? Or, you hear stories about Elton. He's very demanding.
Right. Well, I wouldn't say intimidated. The weird road with me is I've always taken the place of bass players that were really good, like with David Lee Roth, I had to take Billy Jean's place, who's like everyone's bass hero, and mine too. And then with Joe Satriani, I had to take Stu Ham's place. And I remember playing with Joe. We'd play concerts, and when Joe would introduce me, all the crowd would go, "Stu!" And I thought they were booing me. I'm like, oh, what's up with this? And they just love Stu. And both those guys were just amazing bass players, as well as Bob. And I never really looked at it like looking at what they did. It was always about, this is what I do, and I know I can keep up with them. And I may not be the flashiest bass player or this or that, but one thing Greg and I did when we were younger is just tried to learn all the styles so that you can go into any kind of music and hold your own. My brother's a lot better of an improviser and stuff like that, but as long as you can hang in there and be respectful, that's the thing. And as far as Elton's, everything, he's probably the only guy I've worked with that in 10 years, he's only told me twice of his opinion of what I should do. He said, on this song, Take Me to the Pilot, he said, just maybe play a little bit less. And then on Rocket Man, he said, maybe just back it off a little bit on this jam section. But he's never said anything about don't do this, don't do that. He just likes to jam. And every night it's completely different. You never know what to expect. And the weird thing is that, he's been doing this forever, and he's Elton John. He's got all his stuff and everything, but I'm right next to him, and I'm the next person right next to him. And whenever he plays anything that's kind of cool or whatever, he'll look at me, and I go like, yeah, man, that's really cool. And I'm going, that is amazing, man, that he's so young at heart and loves music so much that he still needs to do something and get affirmation from his bass player, like he doesn't need me to tell him he's great and what he just did. So it keeps me young when I see him, because he just comes out and he's just a jammer. He just playing, and he wants to do something different every night. And he gets really bored really easy. If it's the same thing, he'll just say, we're not doing that song anymore. Like we did the song Alice. I think we played it in Detroit. and he just didn't like it for some reason, and it was gone. I mean, with him, it's like things magically disappear. It's
Well,
pretty
to that point, I've always heard that he does not like Crocodile Rock, but he feels like he has to play it. Is there truth to that?
He hates it. And Nigel, the drummer, really hates it. I don't know why. I remember that was the first song that I ever really got into Elton when I was a little kid. I can still see it when we're playing on stage. I can still see my little 45 going around with Crocodile Rock with my sister Kathy and my cousin Karen and Sandy. We'd just sit there and listen to that song every day. So it's kind of a chuckle funny thing. And, I mean, that song apparently did really well. So I'm sure that they're laughing all the way to the bank. But yeah, I think it's just one of their songs. There are a few songs in the set that they're not really crazy about, but I mean, still a great song. It's Crocodile Rock.
I love it. Yeah.
Well, my first Elton John album was my mom's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and my brother and I played that all the time, and we loved it. And so I went after the show. I'll go to a show and then I'll sort of really get into it afterward. We're like, damn it, why didn't I, do a little more research beforehand? But I felt like I knew Elton John pretty well. So I went back and listened to Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and I don't know if I've ever seen something like this before, but that double album starts with a 12-minute jam. I mean, Funeral for a Friend, what album starts with a 12-minute tour de force? I can't believe the record label didn't say, no, you can't start with this. Put something catchy, poppy, hook them, then we'll put this in. I mean, it's amazing. Yeah. Now, of course, in the show, it's in the middle of the show, and it really is, to me, a centerpiece because it's just so powerful. Are there songs or parts of the show that are the most fun for you as a musician and as a fan?
Well, when I first got the gig, I didn't really know that many Elton songs, and I was always obviously a fan of his, but it wasn't like I was glued into everything. So when Bob passed away, I had about a week to learn pretty much 100 songs. And I remember I was out on the road with Rick Springfield in Vancouver, and I was just walking around Stanley Park like 8 hours on the off day, just listening to the songs every day just to get, because I wanted to get in the band, because tragically Bob killed himself. And he died, and I know his family really well, and it was just a horrible, horrible situation, and the band was just devastated. Elton and everybody was just devastated, and I just wanted to go in and make a smooth transition for everybody. I played his basses, I kept all his gear. I didn't come in and go, oh man, we got to change this, because I was like, I just wanted to get in there and make it smooth so everyone could just get over it, and time would heal it. So it was kind of a very uncomfortable spot for everybody. So I remember learning Love Lies Bleeding. I'm just like, oh man, these guys are just jamming. I'd have different gig tapes, and they were all completely different. So I'd call John, the percussionist, which one do I learn? He goes, good luck, just be ready for anything. So I remember, I think at that point when you're doing well, like Elton was, I think you can kind of get away with murder and do what you want to do. It's like the common theme with all these movies, like Elton movie and the Queen movie, and probably with the Bowie movie coming up and different things, is it was the 60s and 70s, and it's a lot different now. Now you put out a single and you whatever. And back then it was like themes, they had themes for records. So he could get away with stuff because of who they were and stuff. But I remember, funny thing about the Goodbye Yellow Brick Road is that's just a different song than anything he's ever done. And I've always been curious about that song because it's so like harmonically just in another world from anything else. So I remember we were on a plane flying with him, and I was sitting right across from him. And it's kind of like with Ringo. When I work with Ringo, you were with a Beatle, you see everybody peppering him for questions like Ringo, what was it like when this blah 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 blah, And
it's like a Star Trek convention, right? Everybody go up to Captain Kirk.
Right. You just don't want to be that guy to embarrass yourself with some stupid question. So I remember I timed my question with Ringo. We were playing a gig, and we walked up on stage, and we could hear Twist and Shout or something, and you could hear the bass a little bit. And so I had my Ringo moment. I go, this is my question because it's relevant. I go, Ringo, how did you ever hear Paul's bass? I mean, how did you ever do that? And he looked at me, he goes, I never heard his bass, I just watched his ass. I go, that's a good story. So like with Elton, I wanted to, I didn't want to, be an idiot. So but it was a question of mine with Goodbye Yellow Brick road because it's kind of like John Coltrane Giant Steps, where you have these changes that are completely jazz, and it's really difficult when you sit behind a piano. I've tried to, and I go, so what were you inspired by with that song? Were you listening to Coltrane or Keith Jarrett or what? He goes, no, just went in and did it. And I was like, come on, man, are you telling me the truth? That song just came out of nowhere in that key and everything? And he goes, yeah, just, and it kind of comes back to, that's the truth about these guys. I mean, I've always been like a session guy or a musician guy that plays with people that may be famous or whatever. But I've always, now at 61 years old, I sit and I go, these guys, the guys that I've played with are the real deal. The guys that come up with the stuff. And guys like me just kind of go from gig to gig, and I get to ride their coattails and be around it. And it's an honor to do that. It's guys like Rick Springfield. He's a really rock star. That's who he is. And like Neil Girardo, I used to play softball with him. Rock star. They live that life because it's really who they are. And us musicians get in trouble when we try to act like rock stars because we're really not. We're just kind of with these guys and working with them, So,
well, I don't know. I just watched this morning. I watched the Just Like Paradise video, and you look like a rock star in that.
Thanks, man. Well, imitating rock stars. I remember that day we're filming. I was scared out of my brain, going, "What am I doing with my life? Taking Billie Sheen's place and all these girls around doing this video and stuff." And it was just, and it seemed so like yesterday, but that was 1987, But I've just kind of learned that these guys have a plan. So basically, what I was getting to is that first time I ever recorded with Elton, we were in the studio in L.A. And he goes in, he writes this song real quick on the piano, and he goes, "Okay, let's do it." I'm going, "Okay, cool." We haven't really checked out sounds or anything. Let's do it. So he goes, "Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4." Starts playing, and then Nigel starts playing with him, and Davey, guitar player, starts playing with him, and everyone's making clams and mistakes and stuff like that. And I'm going, "Okay, there's no click track like everybody now records with a click track, and it's all organized before you do it and stuff." I'm going, "Well, I'm sure when we get done with this, we'll break the song apart and start over, and everyone learn their parts and do it again." And then so the song kind of ends, and everyone's making mistakes and stuff. The song ends, and Elton goes, "All right, let's listen." So they all go into the studio, and they start listening, and I'm going, "You got to be kidding me, man. There's like all this stuff all over the place that I made a couple clams and stuff." And he goes, "Okay, that sounds good. I'm going to go do my background vocals." So he goes in and sings, and I'm going, they're going with this. They're using this, and they're going to let all this stuff go by. And I'm kind of tapping the engineer going, "Am I going to be able to fix my part?" So the more I'm listening to it, the more I'm realizing that the mistakes I make are kind of charming. They're kind of like 60s, the 70s, where you wouldn't, every other studio now you'd go, "I have to fix that part because it wasn't perfect," And as the song, Davey goes out and plays a guitar overdub, and I'm going, "This is it. This is what happened when I was a little kid when they were making Crocodile Rock." It's these little charming things that when you listen to, they could be mistakes, but they register in your mind, and that's music. And that's why he looks at me when we're playing, because that's the first generation of this stuff. So that's the biggest education for me is seeing that happen, and then being able to, because like when I produce stuff, I like to be really on it and everything, but it was a different time back then, so it really taught me a lot.
So when you play with Elton John, he doesn't say, "Okay, here's your part, play this, play that." He just starts laying down a track, and you just got to jump in and try and keep up?
Never says anything, man.
So if we hear Elton John music with Matt Bissonette on it, that's a Matt Bissonette original bass line.
Oh, yeah. Well,
right.
Dee Murray, the original bass player, Dee Murray, who was very underrated, amazing bass player. He, it's just kind of like Paul McCartney. When the Beatles started, they would do their songs because they only had 2 tracks, and they'd play, and they had played club gigs so many times, they were so good they could do that. But then later, Paul would do his bass part last as an overdub because they could, and then it would be more of a crazy bass part. That's the way Dee was too. They started out recording everything live, and then later on Dee would put his bass part on last. And you never know whether that makes it better or worse, because sometimes when you think about it too much, it gets worse. But Dee was great at any level that he would do it. So I mean, I could go in there, but when I've recorded with Elton, it's kind of like we're just banging it out quick, and we don't sit there and go, let's take 4 hours for this bass part, because he would go through the roof. He's like, let's get this done, and because he needs to get out and get to the next thing. Like, we'll play shows. This is the funniest thing I learned when I first got in the band. It's because it's always like, you get off the plane, you do the gig, right when the gig's over, you're back on the limo to get to the plane to go to the next city. Like, they're in a rush to go nowhere, and it's amazing to me, because we'll go and play some show for 50,000 people. We'll get on the plane, and he's immediately doing a crossword puzzle across from me on the plane. He's already moved on, like that gig never happened.
Damn.
And instead of sitting there going, okay, so what did you guys play on that thing? There's none of that, and there's a lot of bands that don't do that. They just kind of are good enough to just go, that's over, what's next, and that's what I'm trying to do more in my life, is just not dwell on mistakes in the past or anything in the past, and just, it's where I'm going next. So
what's the next thing?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Regarding Elton recording, there was a story yesterday. I don't know if you know anything about it or if you were even there, but did he record something with Britney Spears last week? Is there any truth to that? Do you know anything?
I don't know about that, but I don't doubt it at all, because, I mean, I think he's 75 years old, and he's just going crazy, just doing so much stuff. He's recording a lot with a lot of young artists, and I think that'll be his path. He just loves to be in the mix of writing and with new artists and stuff. So I don't doubt. I don't know for sure about that, but
I think one of his number one streaming songs right now is the hit he had with Dua Lipa.
Yeah, Cold Heart.
Yeah, which he probably likes that, I would think.
It's amazing. He just wants to be in it, and he'll go to his grave being in it.
Well, Sinatra kind of did that too with duets, and you see that with a lot of old acts. Tony Bennett would play with some folks,
Lady
and
Gaga,
it keeps them relevant, it keeps them hip, and it might be kind of fun. I mean, one of the things in my wormhole with Elton John, seems to be always a part of our popular culture. You read all these assessments like, well, really from 70 to 73, Elton John was great. After that, now I was like, bullshit. I said, where have you been? Because I think from 73 until about last Monday, he's been kicking ass. I might not like all of it, but I mean, this is a dude who, if this is his worst day, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm not even going to get there on my best day times a million.
Yeah, he's always this, man. He's always just going to the next thing and leaving a smoke trail behind him, and everyone can either follow him or not. And everybody has their opinions about anybody that's doing anything. It's like high school. This goes back to, you see somebody just taking off, and you just either respect it or not. You may not like everything about it. I mean, there's certain songs that I don't really particularly like, and there's certain ones that I just love. I mean, whenever we play "Sorry Seems to Be the Hardest Word," I think that's like one of the best songs ever written, from top to bottom. I saw something the other day of him on the Johnny Carson show, of just him and a piano, just playing it. And it was unbelievable, with that voice and everything. And, you just got to tip your hat and just go, God bless you, man.
Well, now you've played with a lot of amazing people. Brian Wilson. We're going to leave the jazz guys out for just a minute, but Brian Wilson, David Lee Roth. I mean, whether you like David Lee Roth or not, an iconic guy, a real character, I'm sure. Elton John. Yeah, Jeff Lynne. I mean, do you find that these folks really savor what's going on, or is it just, I'm going to the next thing? I mean, do they ever have a chance to really appreciate it? Because, watching Rocket Man, one of the things that really struck me is just this relentless drive, almost as the genius is almost like a torture rather than a blessing. And I got into a Brian Wilson wormhole this week too, and I'm thinking, geez, I'd love to be that smart, except it seems like it sucks.
Yeah, I wouldn't know about that stuff. I remember when I recorded with Brian Wilson, he walked up to me and he goes, "That sounds good. I play bass too, And I'm like, "Yeah, I think I know that, He's just like, I think there has to be a little bit of tortured soul when you lay yourself out like that. I mean, like when I write songs and I produce songs, it's like like when I'm playing with other artists, it's like I'm a hired gun and I'm doing my job and I give it my 100%, but I leave it because it's their thing, you know. But when I do my own thing, like we have a band called the Redcoats, and when we tour with that or play with that and different bands that I've been in, I get a taste of what it's like to have all that pressure. Like even if I'm singing in a club gig and the drummer's playing too slow, I'll turn around and go, "Hey man, can you speed it up? Because I have to sing this and look these people in the face, and I just want to get it done faster or whatever." And it makes me realize when I work with other singers, and sometimes they pull an attitude like, "Come on, faster, faster." When you're the center of all that attention, I for so many years, I don't think you come out of that totally sane. I think it's just not in a bad way, but it just takes parts of you away, you know. So, and I've noticed the common theme between like Dave and Elton and Joe and Rick Springfield and Jeff Lynne and all these guys is that you're constantly creating and trying to, you know, once you have a hit, you know, and I always wonder about this too, is that once you have a hit, you're a pretty driven guy. You want to make another hit. And I'm sure all these guys, however old they are, and everybody wants to be back in that land of number one. And for me, that I get that and I understand it, but I'm so thankful that I never had to deal with that, because I'm just I'm very grateful to have been famous, you know, whatever famous means. My goal in life is to be famously unknown. So somebody would know me from something and not have bad words to say, even though you can't control what people think. But to have all that, what these guys have, I wouldn't want it. I mean, I think that's something you sign up for, and it's forever. I mean, I'd be sitting at a dinner with Springfield, and some drunk girl will just stumble onto him and go, "Sign my shirt," and lift her shirt up or something like that.
That sounds terrible.
Well, except some of those girls are 70 now.
Yeah, right, exactly. But he's always gracious about it. He does the thing. He signs the autographs. He does his thing. But that's not for me. You know, I mean, everyone has their point, and so I think there's the blessing and the curse with it, and it's, you know, and it just depends on how that individual handles that. You know,
well, and you've always been working, and you're on so many different albums, so you've had that success. And I was listening to an interview with you and your brother, and talking. Your dad said you got to keep playing, just keep playing, just do gigs. And I thought I either read it or heard that you played Disneyland, like that you were in a Disneyland band.
Oh yeah, the best gig I've ever had in my life.
Why?
It's where dreams come true.
It's where dreams come true. I like mice. Well, it was 1984. I just moved back from New York for a while, and I just started playing top 40 gigs. And I think, I mean, back then, I don't know what it's like now, but playing cover gigs is probably the best thing you can do, because you're playing all night, 4 or 5 nights, you know, 4 or 5 nights a week and whatever, 4 or 5 hours a night. And you're playing the best songs that are on the radio. And so you, as a writer, you're playing and singing. And singing is probably the most important thing, is that you're actually working on your singing, because like with Elton, one of the big reasons why I have the gig is because I can sing. And a guy that couldn't sing couldn't do this gig, you know, so you kind of cut your arm off if you don't use everything that you have. So when you're playing top 40, you're learning all the songs. There's many things going on at the same time you don't even realize. So they called me to audition for the Disneyland band, from the band that comes out from the ground at Tomorrowland Terrace. So I'm like going, okay, great. So I go there, and there's 40 bass players sitting outside the thing, and then the band comes up from the stage, right? And I'm looking at the band, and I'm looking at this girl singer, and I'm going, oh man, that girl's really cute. She's really cute. So anyway, I go up there, play Footloose. Everybody had to learn Footloose and I Want a New Drug, because that was the songs at the time. And I remember kind of going, this drummer's really good. This band's really good, you know? Ended up marrying the singer. One of my best friends is the drummer, and all the guys in the band have been my best friends for 35 years, you know? So you never know in any situation what's going to happen, you know? And it was just a great gig. I mean, you're going up 4 times a week up this goofy stage and going up and down, but it was one of the best learning experiences. And I was also playing 7 nights a week in LA, and 5 days a week. So within that year, I probably did like 1 million gigs. And I got a lot better in a year, you know. So a lot of people look down on the top 40 gigs, but I always thought it was a great education.
Matt, I was just curious. You've played with a lot of people, a lot of whom are showmen in a way. Brian Wilson is sort of an anti-showman and looks pained when he performs. And I recently watched his documentary, I think A Long Promised Road, on a long flight across the country, actually. And I don't know if you've seen that or not, but what's the difference between somebody like him and some of these others who, when he creates, he hears everything and every part in his head and then kind of goes around and collaborates that way from trying to get out what's in his head to y'all?
I think that's a great question, man. I wouldn't really know where his head's at with it, but it's like there's this guy, Rick Beto, who has a YouTube video.
I love his channel.
Yeah, he's great. And he understands music, and he asks great questions, and he gets it. Well, his son has amazing perfect pitch, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think I kind of have relative pitch where if I go into a session and they play a song, I can write the chart and be kind of close. So that's kind of relative pitch. But this guy and certain people, I mean, they hear music in colors. They hear it in different shapes and things that us mere humans do. And it's a blessing and it's a curse, because you start, you know, I know some people, like engineers that work with WAV files on their computers, they have nightmares about WAV files chasing them in the middle of the night. And they'll wake up in cold sweats because it's just, you get so close to it. I think a guy like Brian, and I don't really know him that well, but I think because he's such a genius and, you know, in that way, that he hears music different than the rest of us, you know, and I think that's a blessing for him, but I'm sure it tortures him too, you know, and yeah, I just don't love music that much to go crazy for it. I mean, I think balance is the most important thing, man. I mean, like, God in my life, he's spared me from just being a musician. I mean, like, I get to a city, I got to walk like 10 miles a day and see what's out there and talk to people and watch sports and do stuff and have balance. We work with the two cellos all the time. These two guys that used to play with Elton, and they are just music and girls and let's go. And I remember talking to one of the guys going, hey man, you should think about balance a little bit, because you need to, I mean, music is not going to do it. Nothing but music. You need to figure this out, you know? And we laugh about it and stuff, but I don't know what Brian's balance thing is, what his life view is, but I know that music can, like sports, can eat you up if that's all there is. So I pray that Brian doesn't have a tortured soul with that stuff, or any genius, that they have something to fall back on. But yeah, I definitely think that Brian hears in shapes and colors. And like, I've worked with a couple artists, some artists that didn't know anything, that would explain songs in colors because they didn't know what they were talking about, and they were just kind of just chirping. But a guy like Brian, I think he really sees it differently.
He's almost a savant, like a musical savant.
Which we're grateful for as a society, but it does come at a price. I mean, he's had a lot of struggle.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, I'm sure part of it is that, you know, I mean, you just see the world differently. And the pressure that he was under, I mean, listen to those old Beach Boy bootlegs where they're in the studio with his dad.
Oh my God, Murray.
Yeah, they're yelling at each other and stuff, and they had so much so fast. I mean, do you really?
It's funny you mentioned those outtakes, because I hear them. I listen to them probably more than I should.
I'm a genius too.
Exactly.
I'm a genius too. Let's go.
Pal?
Let's go. Keep fighting.
It's really funny because you had the feeling that Brian knew exactly what was going to work, and that was the thing to do, and just pretty much ignored his dad. But your dad was very supportive of what you guys did. And was he ever in I think there was a story about him being in the studio with David Foster or something.
Yeah, my mom and dad, I mean, they were jewels, man. They just, you know, basically tell the story all the time, but my brother started playing drums when he was young, and I was kind of like, I didn't really like music that much. I liked baseball and tennis and different things. So I used to go down in my basement and kind of jam on my tennis racket to like Kansas and Rush and different bands and stuff. And then one day they said, go grab the groceries out of the car. So I went back there, and there's this bass, you know, this thing. I'm going, what's this? And they go, there's a bass. So Greg and I just started playing Smoke on the Water for like 10 hours in the basement. And then 2 weeks later, I had a tuxedo, and my dad said, come play with me 2 nights a week. And I was playing bass in his band, and I had no idea what I was doing. And they would just say, I go, Dad, what do I do? He goes, just use your ear and listen to Harry, the accordion player at Roma Hall, and kind of just make music, And I'm like, okay, cool. And he goes, but the only thing is whenever I point to you, you have to get me a beer from the bar. So that was his one prerequisite of doing it. So kind of got thrown into the fire, and thankfully I could handle it, and it worked out and everything. But they never pushed us. Our parents never pushed us. They were both musicians. So, and I was just thinking about this the other day. I was in New York where we played one time, and my mom and dad used to surprise us when we were on the road, like with Maynard, and Greg was playing at the same time, and they would just show up when we'd get off the bus, and they would be there like, hey. And my dad and mom were the biggest Maynard fans, so I was thinking their opportunity that they got to see us play with Maynard was equivalent with me going to see my son. My son's a baseball player. He got drafted by the Pirates, and he's in the minor league systems. I love baseball so much that he's doing what I wanted to do, and we were doing what they wanted to do. So it was really fulfilling to see them follow us all of our lives, to go to all these gigs. Even just before they passed away, they'd come out with Rick Springfield. They would just sit on the stage with us with a couple of beers, and they'd just sit there, part of the show, and everybody would love them. So the David Foster story was Greg was playing a session with David, and it was his first session, so he wanted to impress him and do a good job. And my dad would see that when he would do, Greg would go to sessions, he had a guy that would get paid to set up the drums for him. And my dad goes, so what does that guy make to do that? And he goes, it's like $300. He goes, you mean to say that guy gets $300 for you to set up the drums and then go and pick them up? He goes, I want to do that. So my dad became my brother's cartage guy, setting up his drums for like 15, 20 years. So, but the thing with Bud, my dad, is when he would infiltrate the session, he would get there, and by the first 5 minutes, everybody was in love with him, and they were like, Bud, you got to, so Bud became, my mom and dad would become the center of the session. So it was like this family outing every time we'd get there. So Greg tells, Dad, don't do that thing you always do with David, because I don't really know him. So kind of get in and get out. So Greg shows up to the session. My dad had set up the drums, and there's my dad sitting at the console with David, and David Foster's arms around him. And my brother comes in and goes, hey, Dad, come out here. And David looks at him and he goes, hey, man, we're talking hockey. We're talking Detroit Red Wing hockey with Bud, so get out of here. And Greg's like, okay. It was just because I guess David's a big hockey guy. So they were just amazing. They were part of the landscape, and everybody loved them. You can't ask for more than that from parents,
Matt, you were talking earlier about the idea of hearing something and maybe seeing colors, or hearing music and colors and shapes. And thanks to our intern here, Patrick, who just looked up, perhaps you know this, but it's called, and forgive me if I'm butchering this, but synesthesia. Synesthesia. So it's the idea that you hear or listen or see or whatever, you take one sense, you experience one sense, one of your senses, and it triggers a reaction in another sense. So you're hearing, and so in the case of Brian Wilson, perhaps he's hearing and then he's seeing the colors because he's hearing. And it seems to me that maybe that's just part of the creative process. It's kind of like when I write, I hear Mike Elrich's voice in my head, and I find that very. that very helpful.
And then he does the opposite, unfortunately. What can I tell
but just
you?
That's a fascinating kind of
Wouldn't
idea.
It be nice?
That one sense can trigger something in a different sense, in a different way.
I have a little millionth of a piece of that where I have the relative pitch, where if I hear something, like I did a session, I bring my laptop on the road and people will send me files and I'll play on it. And this guy's guitar track was a little bit under the pitch, and like A440 is like the level of perfect, where the intonation's perfect, and it was a little bit under, and I called him and he didn't call me back. I said, hey man, am I supposed to play to what you did, or are you going to redo it or what? And it kind of drives you a little crazy, because like when you hear like like if I hear a song on the radio, and this is with my limited pitch, I'll hear the music different than most people do because I hear the music and I start writing a chart in my mind, like Fire and Rain. I remember the first time I did it was Fire and Rain in college, the James Taylor song. Just yesterday morning, they let me know, you know, that whole thing. So it was like C, F, C. It started getting like pictures in my mind of what these chords were. So like when I do a session now, I'll just write it out because I've done it for so long. But if it was something, if there was a mistake or if there's like something, like when you go to a club and you hear a band butcher a song, it's got to drive somebody like Brian or somebody that sees shapes, like they got to get out of the room. because it's irritating and it's horrible to them. So yeah, I think mental illness can come from that because you're in a world with imperfect things and their brain's seeing it differently. So that makes sense to me, what you just said.
Dr. Landy didn't help.
By the way, I too went to North Texas State for a bit. I had a girlfriend. I had a girlfriend there. I was living in Fort Worth, and I used to drive up to see her. And one night,
it's a suburb of Dallas.
One night, I decided I'd surprise her. It didn't go so well. She broke up, and then my car broke down in the middle of 35 going back to Dallas Fort Worth.
I do.
That was fun.
Wait, that could have been when he was there too.
Yeah.
Could have been when Matt was there.
Maybe it was you. She
she went on to sing in a Disney band, and Matt stole her from you.
I wouldn't blame her.
Actually, spared her from a lot of suffering because he doesn't see shapes or colors or nothing. He just hears the sound of his own voice, and it sounds like angels. Hey, Matt, so you're a guy who sounds like you're a family guy, close with your folks. I assume you're close with your son, but you also have a gig where somebody calls and says, hey, we need you, and you're not saying, well, I'm going to put 40 hours in at the plant next week. So how do you balance the playing with a lot of folks, going on the road, doing sessions, picking up gigs? I mean, I imagine you've seen some of your kids' games if you love baseball that much. How do you just manage to do that? Because so many people are so terrible about being family guys with much fewer challenges.
You're perfect at it, though, so.
We'll talk about that after you see the shape of my fist coming at you. It's
okay. I love this
red.
camaraderie.
Yes.
Of hate.
That's a great question because that is the thing that's most important to me is that, I mean, music is music. It's great. But it really, to me, I haven't fallen out of love with it, but I know that it's a job, and it's kind of like everybody always asks me, and I feel the same way like with my son when I ask him, so what was it like there in that double play you made when that guy came in really hard? And he goes, it was just a play, and I just kind of reacted, you know. Some people ask, so what's it like when you go out there? I mean, is it like, not self-glorification, but is it like you just feel all this power and stuff like that? And I just say, no, it's not like that. It's really not like that for me because I've been doing it for so long and I've learned what music really is. And not to get over spiritual on you guys or anything, but I really believe music is a gift given by God that we've really kind of made it into something else. It's anytime that a song goes into self-glorification or just like, check me out, I lose it. I just go, man, I'll play it, but it doesn't sound like what music is supposed to be. So not to sound like a prude or anything, but music I've kind of put it in a box, how important it is in my life. And what's most important to me is just, this kind of stuff, meeting people, hanging out, being friends, and having family. Like my family, is like probably Detroit, most Detroit families. It's a little different in Detroit because our parents stayed together. I'm sure they had times where they didn't want to. And my brother and I were talking about this the other day because my dad used to work at Tasty Bread over there on Hoover, right? Yeah. And they had a bar called Mickey's that was right outside Tasty. And they would do their bread routes at like 5 a.m, delivering bread to Hamtramck and all over Detroit, Ivanhoe markets, Eastern, all the places. And then they would all meet at the bar. And every time I'd go there and drink with them in the old days, they'd always have 2 Altus beers sitting there, right? Always. There was never a dead spot. It was just constantly they'd buy it. They had the system worked out. And they would sit there for 3 hours and, get in their cars and drive home, which wouldn't be happening now. But they would just kind of moan to each other, good and bad about their family lives and their wives. It'd be like a therapy session. They didn't even know it was a therapy session, but they all stayed together. There wasn't one divorce in that whole group. And I would sit there and just laugh because it was just like the things that they'd say, they opened up so much. They had no idea they were doing that. I mean, if they would do that now, the divorce rate would probably be half of what it is now. So with my wife and I, we were just talking about this on the phone the other day. We've chosen this road. My wife's a musician too, so she's a singer, so she does her thing too. She travels, and we kind of have it worked out, but it is hard, you know, and you have to, I think it would be very difficult if I was the man I was when I was 20 years old, because I'd be out chasing girls and drinking and doing stuff like that. But I just don't do that stuff anymore. I mean, back to the prude thing, I felt like God said to me, this is the direction I want you to go to. Life isn't forever, and you need to change certain things, and I did. Probably drank probably for 35 years or something like that. And not holding that up like it's a big deal or anything, but if I was still drinking, I probably still wouldn't be here anymore, and I wouldn't be married, and I'd definitely be in someplace else right now. So I'm thankful that I was spoken to at a certain time in my life where I said, you're going to have to straighten these things out. And so because of that, my wife and I were equally yoked, as they say. We both believe the same things. So it's been a common theme to hold on to. There's not an argument about, she knows I'm leaving for 4 months. She's going to have to deal with it and figure it out. And we just, thank God for FaceTime and for all that stuff. But it does suck. Basically, being like, I got the schedule for next year, and we're finishing this tour in November at Dodger Stadium. Then we go finish the whole thing out next year. But I just saw on the schedule that we're going to Europe for 4 months straight, which we've never done before, because usually there's a break in there. And because of COVID, they're just finishing it out. And like, let's just finish one. I called the road manager. I go, hey, man, we got to go home. This is crazy. So that's going to be a little bit tough because of the length of time. But it's a sacrifice that you do, and we're older now, and we're trying to make as much as we can so that when I come home next summer, maybe this next part of life, not retirement, because I don't think we'll ever retire, but it'll be a little bit of a padding so we can go financially where we're going to go and stuff. But it is a very hard thing. And I'm amazed that like everybody in this band is still married, and they're, everyone's still hanging in there, but it's difficult. I mean, you got to be married to the right person that understands it, or you're never going to make it.
When you talk about that awakening and sobering up, I have to imagine that happened after David Lee Roth, because I just he's laughing. When I hear you toured with David Lee Roth, you spent 5 years in the band. I mean, those must have been some insane shows because of Dave and the audience. I mean, there's got to be some good stories there.
I had a lot of epiphanies. With that gig that kind of got me to a different place. I mean, you grow up in Detroit. It's a drinking town, right? I mean, like any town, it's like you work hard. Everybody works hard, and you come home and your pat on the back is whatever. And, like most of us, I started pretty early with my buddies, like 12, 13, with Boone's Farm and getting into it. And
Mad Dog 2020.
Next thing you know, you're painting your van in high school.
Yeah, I did paint my van, and I did get kicked out. I got kicked out of school for mooning the principal on the last day of school. So there were so many crazy stories of stupid stuff from 12 to so then by the time I got into Dave's band, I mean, I was a pretty seasoned pro like everybody else. We would drink a bottle of wine after the show, before the show, during the show. It was kind of that thing at the time, and I'm thankful to have gotten through that. But I did see a lot of things that I just go, man, this just ain't right. I remember a couple situations with a ton of women at the same time in a hotel room, and I was just like going, it was just a weird scene that I just kind of went, this can't go on if I'm going to be a normal person, because this isn't reality. None of this is reality. Mm-hmm. And when I'm done with this, I don't want to be thinking about that, because that's not real. So I remember when I would go out with Dave, I just separated myself a lot. I would just go off and read books, and Dave would always kind of look at me like, what's up with this bird? And Dave and I got along great and everything, but it was just kind of like, I just didn't buy into the whole thing. And I respected it. I thought it was great, but I just kind of made a turn at that point. And I'm thankful that I did. I think everybody does. I think you can't really live like that forever because it's show business. It's really not. The whole thing that I've learned is that it's all a mirage. It really is. I think anybody would tell you that that's been there. And I haven't been there myself because I haven't, I don't got tons of gold records on my wall saying that, I've earned this or that. But every time I've seen someone that's been famous, it's this thing that you can never get back to. Once you have a hit record and then 30 years later you don't have a hit record, you have to really adjust your brain to not be just pining for that and being sad that you're not on top again. So I think I figured that out pretty early, that there's no gold in those hills. It's just a mirage, and that you have to have a real life and be thankful for what you really have. And that's going back to family. I mean, it's really all there is.
I'm that way here, Matt. I'm thankful to be here. Mike, I think sometimes is a mirage, but he's actually there.
He's a good-looking mirage.
Synesthesia.
You're right. He's very handsome.
We have a little haze on our camera too. But hey, Matt, we really appreciate the time. And it sounds like when you come home to Detroit or the Detroit area.
No, I'm in Orange County, California.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I got one more question for him, if that's all right. So my sister
is
the biggest Elton John fan, and she wanted me to ask you about the outfits, as she wants to know what you consider to be your favorite outfit, and if Elton John has asked you to wear any interesting attire for a performance.
Are you talking about Elton's outfits?
Yes.
Ever since I've started, he's only worn his suits. He hasn't. I think he stopped wearing crazy stuff before I was in the band. So all I've ever seen him is crazy diamond-studded suits that I couldn't even afford as socks. So, he hasn't really gone too. I've seen some videos that I've been looking at lately of some of the stuff that he did and stuff. But all I know is that they signed a deal. I think the first deal was with Dolce & Gabbana. Then it's Burberry, whatever they say.
Burberry? Oh, Burberry, yeah.
And then now it's just different things all the time. So all I know is I have my suit that's sitting there every day, and I put it on, and it's so hot. When we played in Detroit, man, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. It was so hot. And like a couple nights ago in New York at MetLife, we were all just dripping. And of course, Elton's got his air conditioner vent right on him, and we're all just like. But that's that question. I haven't seen him do anything crazier than a diamond-studded suit.
Yeah, well, that's why you're getting so close to the piano. You're trying to catch some of that AC.
That's actually exactly true.
I do like the little ties you have, though. The skinny tie with the tiger head on it. What's the story behind the tiger head?
I don't know. They gave us options, and one of them was like a weird-looking snake or something like that. I was like, I don't want that, so I ended up with the tiger guy just to keep it simple.
No, that's a good look, man. Although. Yeah, that black suit under a hot sun has got to be. Got to be tough, man. That's got to be tough.
It was pretty wild playing at Comerica Park because we all grew up Tiger Stadium, right? Mm-hmm. I remember going into when they took Tiger Stadium down, doing the final tour of the dugout, and I'm thinking it was so small. Like, how did Marc McGuire or these guys even fit in this dugout, right? And then I remember seeing all the games growing up at Tiger Stadium. I wish that Tiger Stadium was still around, that we could have done that, because that was more of what I grew up with. But I've gone to a lot of games at Comerica Park too. But it was pretty surreal getting to the gig and then getting to Coney Island, of course, across the street, and coming back and just seeing downtown and where it is now and how it looks and everything. But then looking over my shoulder and seeing my mom's place that she used to work with from the field, and just kind of, it was emotional. And I was just looking around at all the, the Al Kaline things. And I saw a poster of Eddie Brinkman, and I'm like going, I remember Eddie Brinkman just sitting in Detroit in the house watching the games, and like how Eddie Brinkman would do today in today's game, how everybody's like 600 pounds and hitting home runs and stuff, and how much baseball's changed. But just seeing all those names and going in the dressing room, they had all the Tiger stuff all out. And it never leaves you, man. I mean, you can go away from Detroit for 100 years, but you still bleed that. And I was just watching the Red Wings special, Unrivaled or whatever that's called.
Yeah.
And just crying my eyes out, because I remember my mom and dad and I and my brother and sister watching it in real time when Wah and Vernon went at it. And I was just like going, that's just something that never leaves. I mean, anybody can go away to another country and live, but you always come back to that. You know, that was just inbred Detroit stuff, man. It's very, very strange.
Well, Matt, I got a technical question for you. Speaking of the heat, I notice you don't use a pick a lot of the time when you're playing. How do you keep your fingers from getting slippery when you're wearing that suit and you're sweating bullets and, you know, you're out there for, you know, Elton John's 75 years old. There's other guys in the band who are no spring chickens either. And you guys are out there banging it out in suits and it's hot and, you know, I know baseball players wear wristbands and stuff like that, but do you have any tricks to keep it crisp?
Well, I love playing with a pick, like with our band, the Mustard Seeds and stuff that's like Rage Against the Machine, stuff like that. There's certain songs you just need to smack it with a pick, and it's that sound of the bass. Elton's songs don't really have that much of it, so it's mostly playing with your fingers and stuff. But it is challenging, man, for 2.5. We used to do 3.5 hour shows, which was unbelievable for me that these guys would do that. Now it's like 2.5. And when it gets sweaty like that, the hardest thing is the humidity. I only notice it when we're on the East Coast, and from playing with Joe Satriani and stuff, I remember going, man, I can't physically play this because my hands are sliding all over. But I'm looking at Joe, and he's just like going crazy. It's not affecting him. So, you know, what's the deal with that? But it's really challenging with the humidity. But I think with this style of music, it's mostly playing with your fingers for that rounder sound and stuff. But yeah, heat is a factor, man. It's a tough one. Humidity more than heat.
And are you looking forward to the end of the tour? I mean, do you know what you're doing after that? I assume at some point he is going to be saying farewell.
Yeah, this is it. I think he's really, I mean, everyone says, oh yeah, sure, he said this before, but I think, you know, once we finish in the States, we take a month off, then we do Australia, New Zealand for a month, I think. And then in April, I think, late March, we do 4 months in Europe, and then it's over. And then I think everyone just cries it out and, you know, or take a breath of relief or whatever their thing is. And everyone goes to their corners and just goes, now what do we do? And, you know, I'm sure Elton will be recording and doing his stuff and writing and working with young artists. I mean, everybody kind of has an idea of what their plan is. And my plan is to just go home and just sit there and go, okay, because I've been on the road since, 81, pretty much nonstop over all these years, however long that is, 40 years or whatever. And I'm ready to kind of just not do it for a while. But I have no idea what my heart's going to say at the time, if it's going to be like, okay, now I want to do something else. I have no idea. And I don't think anybody really has a plan,
So Matt, tell us a little bit about your music. Where can people hear what you're going to do? Are you going to play some gigs around or?
Well, I've always been a writer. I used to be a staff writer for Island Music and just different things. So I'm always have a studio in my house like everybody in the world. And I produce a lot of bands and stuff like that. But I write a lot for TV and movies. And what I like to do is like write a whole album of it, like a Foo Fighters sounding album, and then call it a band and then put artwork and then, do that. I have a band called The Redcoats. It's The Redcoats, REDDCOA with 2 Ds. We have a website, and there's all the music that I do is on mattbissonette.com. I hate saying that stuff. It sounds so.
You have to.
No, but, you've done so much. We just can't cover it in this interview. So I think people are going to want to find out more. They're going to do what I did. Is like, that was a great show, and they're going to spend the next couple of weeks saying, Bissonette, damn, why? I want to know all I can about that cat.
You're too kind.
I'm talking about Greg. Yeah, they want to know about Greg.
Greg Schmick.
Yeah, Greg who?
Greg has a gregbissonette.com too. But I mean, all the stuff I have pretty much is on mattbissonette.com, and then there's a redcoats.com. The Redcoats is kind of a band. This great guitar player, Andy Timmons, is a really great guitar player. I saw him in a club one day, and he said, we got to do a whole album. So a bunch of friends got together, and my brother's playing drums on it. And it's a cool band, and we got that. It's all on the website, stuff like that. But it's just like the older you get, the more you just want to just not write cookie cutter songs where they're just like, what you hear on the radio. Because everything now is bought like singles, and and we grew up going, every song had a thing on this album with the design of the album and the concept. I still want to do that. I still want to have 10, 12 songs on a record that have something to do with each other, some kind of a story, and just write whatever comes out, not think about it, because like I have an orchestra CD that I'm doing that's online on the website, where it's just orchestra and a fretless bass, and there's videos to it that are online and stuff like that. Just doing different stuff. I mean, I have really no idea what's going to happen in the future. I just know that just going to keep going wherever I need to go. I'll hear the voice.
Well, next time you're in town, if you've got some time, we'd love to have you in studio and catch up, and or just get a Coney.
Let's get a Coney.
Lafayette.
Oh, God, no. American.
Oh, hell no.
Okay.
Lafayette.
Matt's, unlike you jokers, Matt's time is valuable. We'll resolve that pointless debate later.
No fighting. No fighting.
Yeah, so
He prefers Burger King fries, too. So.
You got an open invitation, Matt, and we wish you all the best on the rest of the tour.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on your show. It's really cool. You guys are good fellas.
Thank you for your time.
It's our pleasure. And you tell Elton from my wife if he needs somebody to take care of John Reed, she's locked and ready to go.
Okay, man. I'll do my best.
Okay. All right, Matt Bissonette, thanks for joining us here on the Soul of Detroit.
All right, guys. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Matt.
So Matt's playing in Boston now. He just finished a couple of shows in New York, and this is like a 3-year farewell tour, which has got to be really taxing. But I'll tell you, to go on the road and play in Europe and to play in Australia, that's kind of probably one of those things where you wish it was on the front of the tour, because you feel like you can explore and enjoy all these exotic places. But after you've been grinding for 2 years, it's like, oh, we're going to heaven? Well, I hope we get the hell out of there, because I got dinner on the stove. It's like, hey, God, good show? Okay,
When have you ever had dinner on the stove?
Well, but here we go.
I'm more of a toasted bread guy, but there's a heating element there.
No, I understand the cliche, but I was just curious if that was actually true.
We got Cooking in the Barn. Whose barn? My barn? Who's that? Who sings that? You know that song.
I did love the idea that, not the idea, but the fact that he talked about how, handsome you were. I think that's an underrated part of this.
Handsome men immediately recognize each other. Just like musical geniuses.
It's an underrated part of the podcast,
Well, I have to tell you, I got a little nervous when he was talking about his teacher dying and getting him this gig, because I just reconnected with a guy on LinkedIn who taught me more about the saxophone than anybody else, who was a student teacher when I was in high school. Unfortunately, having taught me more than anybody else, I still don't know anything. So if he died and somebody said, "Can you come out and play with our orchestra?" it wouldn't go as well as it did.
You play the saxophone.
It's been a while. I play the alto, and I am a terrible, as Morrissey would say, if you think my singing's bad, you should hear me play piano. I'm a bad piano player, too.
I was more of a double reed guy. I played the bassoon, not very well.
Bassoon's a pretty cool instrument. I always played the flute. For like 11, 12 years.
Yeah, the flute's not so cool, but the bassoon.
Tell that to John Luke Ponty.
Yeah.
What about Jethro Tull?
Yeah.
What about
Ian Anderson?
Exactly. What about
there is no Jethro Tull.
What about Anchorman's character? He played
jazz flute.
Jazz flute.
Of course.
Jazz flute. Yeah, Fred Armisen, right?
Oh, yes. Flute.
So, but but Matt's a cool dude, and that would be tough too, though, if your kid is making his way in baseball. I mean, his kid's at a point where it's make or break, right? And so he probably wants to go to see as many of those games as he can. But if you're gonna miss a game, it's probably like, well, I got to be in Auckland with Elton John. So I hope you have a good game. But
by the way, next week I'm bringing in Coney's, and we're gonna try them American and Lafayette.
Okay, if it means that.
And you know what? And I'm gonna make some toast.
I eat Coney like 2 or 3
and you're going to have some toast.
Bread with bread. Bread with bread. I like it.
You're never going to be done talking about it.
Your toast? Okay.
Let's take a time out to thank the people who make interviews like Matt Bissonette possible. First of all, John Rutherford of the Cadre Cafe for saying, I bet if you reached out to Matt, he'd respond. And, Matt's seemed like a pretty regular dude,
For sure. Except for the beret, yeah.
Yeah,
that was it's one nod to musician life,
some
You're so wrapped up in people's appearances.
some
Sean.
gentleman
How
accessorize.
dare you?
No,
I know, Mr. No Judgy.
I'm not.
We're getting haberdashery tips now.
No, I'm not making a judgment
Judging
one
your
way or another.
looks.
I'm making an observation that's the one nod to that life a little bit. Is a little bit.
It's
It's got a little style. I like that. Mark, I would like to see you
It's just a
come
flat
in
cap.
in a little cap.
No.
So a little something on your skull.
It's funny because Matt was saying in another
How about a
interview that
skull
he's like,
cap?
I'm not really the musician-y type guy, which is kind of a weird thing to say because he is the musician. He's not, and he mentioned it, the rock star type. And then you see him in videos with David Lee Roth.
Well, he
It's
was the
really
rock star
conflict.
type. That was
Yeah.
pretty clear, right? And then he kind of found a certain spirituality and took
Well,
another
yeah,
direction.
and because we're gentlemen, I didn't want to ask, so you've been married to the Disney woman, and then you were in a room full of women in a hotel. Were you?
Yeah, but-
Did you just open the door and say, "Oh my God, there's a lot of naked women," or did you wake up
It's the
among
80s.
all the naked women and just say, "Oh shit, I better get out of here," because
Look how that aged David
because
Lee Roth.
Snow
right?
White or whoever his wife in the Disney band was going to kill me.
No, maybe she was on set just watching, make sure nothing happened.
Unlikely.
Yeah, that's not for me to.
It's a work hazard.
That's
I'm
not
not
for.
sure about that. But yeah. So anyway, so I reached out to Matt, and like within 24 hours, I get him to say, "Hey, dude, what's going on?"
That's really cool.
I said-
Seems like a nice guy.
And I thought at first, I said, "Well, this guy's writing in the first person. This doesn't sound like his rep, And then so we exchanged some emails, and I was like, "No, I'm talking to Matt Bissonette," and it's just that's
cool.
he's been at the heights, but he hasn't really lost his ground. You can use that in a future column.
That was really deep.
I know.
Yeah, I'll try to use that.
You know what you need to do?
That's
You-
my gift.
You need to get your finances to reach for its head. How's that for a terrible segue?
What's the producer?
And one of those guys that can help you is our buddy Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth. What's going on with the market? Is it ever going to go down to zero and you're just going to lose everything? Of course not.
I'm feeling some bad vibrations.
Oh boy,
Thank you, Brian.
That's terrible. The markets rebound. They always revert from lows. They push new highs. So get yourself positioned. Get some investments. Call Luke Nowacki, Pinnacle Wealth Strategies, 248-663-4748. He's going to, put your money where it should be for your age, which is very important.
Yeah,
Right?
and
it's
if
never too
Thank you,
never
Mark.
too late to
Thank
start.
you for making this
If some
feel
of these
better.
guys that Matt has played with actually turn to somebody like Luke, they could get off the road.
You're right.
You wouldn't see him say like, I made $1 million and I'm living in a Skid Row.
Musicians are notoriously bad business people, aren't they?
And dentists.
Oh,
So are journalists,
dentist.
Well, we
Did
don't
somebody
have
say
anything to
Hall
squander.
Financial.
except for you.
Oh, and that's because
You're a
Luke
good
will make it all
businessman.
about you,
Yeah,
sweetheart.
no
Then
matter
we'll get
what.
the Hall
Yeah,
Financial.
no matter what your what work you do in life, Luke will make it all about you.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
So we can't all be financial geniuses like Luke, but if you're an idiot and you want to make some money or at least protect your patch, David Hall is the guy who you can turn to. And I'm living proof that he can help those who are not that savvy.
He's
end
helped
up
you multiple
being
times,
pretty
hasn't he?
important
You're pretty
landowners.
savvy.
I'm so savvy I got 3 V's in there.
Mr. Hall's made you savvier, but you were already savvy.
He's made me sassy.
Well, the Fed is raising rates this week. It seems like a foregone conclusion. But the good news is if you own a home, your home value has skyrocketed. So if you need to get money out of it, you can do that. And Hall Financial is going to help you get cash out of your house with a cash out refinance. The average house has gone up, like $30,000 in the last year. They just help somebody get $55,000 out of their house. You can pay off your other sky-high debt, your student loans, whatever you have, or you can just put that money back in your house and remodel. Whatever you need to do, just call Hall, and they'll help you out with some options. It's 866-CALL-HALL, or you can chat online at callhallfirst.com.
And when you call David Hall or Luke Nowacki, make sure you let them know that
Yeah.
old ML sent you. And you can find links to their websites on our website, which is mlsoulofdetroit.com. And I got to tell you, in terms of product placement, when Matt was saying, so my dad was drinking Altus, I was like,
I
got to call Carl and say, hey, we got a retro Altus
still
plug.
around.
Yeah, but I do think, to go back to that point, and this is where social media is crazy.
Yes, please do.
Used to go out after work with some folks. I'm sure they all bitched about their wives and their kids like you couldn't believe. And then they went home, but they never went home and said, boy, I bet everything's great over at Larry's house. Like, no, Larry was just telling me that he's married to a battle axe that makes Broomhilda at my house seem like, the Queen of Sheba.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, you used to be able to get it off your chest with all your friends and coworkers.
Back when men ruled the world.
And not... Well, no, my point is not doing it in a public
the women
forum
did
like
it too.
social media.
The women
Tell
did
me
it
women
while they
don't
were
bitch about
washing
their
our clothes down by the river.
Right? Yeah.
It was a service we provided.
By the way,
It's
we
really
getting
stinking up all those V-neck T-shirts.
Can I say something? Somebody was
By
bad.
the way, does anybody wear a V-neck T-shirt anymore? Is that
No.
like a white one?
Unless you're super hot.
If I just may say something real quickly. So somebody did
That's
something
a real
bad.
question.
Somebody did something bad in Mississippi. That's your Geek of the Week. So can we go ahead and play Kate Bush now?
Okay, so let's finish this thought. But that's the problem with social media, is nobody has that session where they get together and talk about all the bad shit. I mean, I know people, when you look at the pictures on their social media feed, you're like, oh my God, it's like the Von Trapp family. And you don't know that they're all like, oh, let me tell you what that little shit did yesterday. But when you got together with people face to face like people used to do, you kind of didn't have these illusions that everything was great on the other side of the fence. Because you knew.
Yeah, it lowers the keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Yeah, I mean, you
don't see all
thought
the
it was
fake
so
bullshit.
great, and then one of those people narked on all the bums in their house, and you're like, oh, okay.
Nowadays, you can't even do that because someone will probably be taping you with their phone.
Yeah,
at least now they're
you'll go viral.
Exactly.
At least now they're kind of pushing out this whole like face-to-face online therapy thing. I've heard a lot about it. I've heard, like, I have a friend who actually does like his therapy via appointment on Zoom.
Therapy. I just want to bitch about people to my friends.
Isn't that what therapy is?
Well,
it's venting for sure. I mean, it lets some pressure off. But I guess,
I don't know.
I guess rather than finding a new way to complain about people online, I'd just like to shut down Facebook. I'd settle for that. That seems.
No, you
as
can
we're streaming on Facebook.
You can complain about people here. That's your next segment, Geek of the Week.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
I thought I was supposed to skip that. I'm a genius too, Sean. I'm a genius too. Come on, boys. You got to fight for it. You got to fight. You got to fight.
Too much money, pal?
You make too much money, pal? Yeah.
That's my favorite one.
Oh, God. So I watched the Brian Wilson thing, and Murray sold all the publishing rights out of spite for like peanuts.
Fucked him over hard, man.
I got it now. Mike, you're too close on your low notes. Carl, come in a little. Mike, you back off and we got the blend, okay?
So he's talking to you.
Dennis, watch your flatting, dear. Okay,
Thanks,
Al,
Sean.
loosen up and we got it. This is going to be a hell of a hit. Let's go. Loosen up. Loosen up a little.
Yeah, we like to have a peaceful
Dad,
session.
Brian, I'm a genius too. Let's go, huh?
There it is.
We like to record in peace, Father. We like
Murray.
to record in peace. Murray, yeah. Oh, God.
Such an asshole.
Randy, you look so fine.
Teaching him how to sing. Get out of here, Murray.
And he had like one minor hit, on the polka circuit.
That's right,
It's like,
yeah.
Come on.
He was a
dude.
musician, but yeah, don't take over your genius son.
Yeah, nice try. Well, so our Geek of the Week, which Sean, upon reflection, realized was a genius move, begs me to ask, what the hell's going on with Brett Favre this time? Now he's even getting lawyers fired, kind of. So we've heard about Brett Favre taking some grant money from charities that maybe, he should give back, and he said he would give back and all other crap. Well, this lawyer hired by the state of Mississippi, which has money flying out of every coffer, and all they do is invest money in education in Mississippi. They just really love trying to raise the
proof is in the
educational
pudding.
standards. Yeah, so he's investigating the University of Southern Mississippi, which got $5 million. This attorney hired by the state, a gentleman named Brad Pigott, and they got $5 million in welfare funds, but it was to build a volleyball stadium. You're like, well, okay, so it's state money. They're building a volleyball stadium. That's fine, whatever. Well, it turns out that as he digs into this, he may have gotten a little too close to Brett Favre, who it seems the last good thing he did was something about Mary, because he and the former governor are USM alum, and Brett Favre's daughter played volleyball at the school. So, okay, so no problem so far, except, it turns out that Pigott tells the New York Times that Favre had promised $5 million to the University of Southern Mississippi to build a volleyball stadium. I guess he just didn't tell him it wouldn't be his money. It would be welfare money from the state of Mississippi, which, by the way, probably has some better stuff to spend it on than a pledge that Brett Favre had made.
Didn't they cover up a lot of this money too, claiming that they were for speaking fees and events and keynote well, none of which he did.
Right, that was some of the other money that he pledged to give back. I don't know whether he's given it back yet or not. But anyways, Brett Favre.
Favre?
Yeah, that guy. You're our Geek of the Week.
There's an all-night party in room 7609. And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
So in my very convivial correspondence with Matt Bissonette, I was asking him, you can even, give us a favorite new wave tune that we could play, or is there a band you like and I'll find something, or is there a new wave song that you really like that people aren't listening to? And
what was his answer?
I hate new wave music.
That's what I'm wondering.
No, he said, listen, dude, I just don't want to take any fire from Shawn, so I'm going to pass on that.
Oh, okay.
And he knows the show. He knows the show.
Listen, yeah.
Yeah. So I made an executive decision, and I thought, because this is kind of an Elton John theme, we would go with Kate Bush, the English songbird, and play her version of Elton John's Rocket Man, then debate whether or not it's really new wave.
It's not.
0 hour, 9 a.m. And I'm gonna be high as a kite by then. I miss the earth so much, I miss my wife. It's lonely out in space on such a tireless flight. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. No, no, no. I'm a rocket man. Rocket man. It's yours. I'm here alone. Mars ain't the kind of place to raise the kids. In fact, it's cold as hell. And there's no one there to raise them if you did. And all this science I don't understand. It's just my job 5 days a week. A rocket man. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. No, no, no. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find I'm not the man they think I am at home. No, no, no. I'm a rocket man. Rocket man. Burning his fuse up here alone. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time.
She sang for a long, long time, didn't she?
It takes a special kind of artist to ruin a great song.
I don't remember the original being that long.
That song was terrible.
But, Kate Bush is one of these artists where I always debate, is she the best singer ever or the worst singer ever?
She's not good.
I can tell you right now she's not the best.
Not the best. Okay.
Wait, we're still talking about this?
So we've eliminated one.
The song just now ended.
Okay.
Like Shawn, it just kind of trickled.
Oh, thank you. Wait, what? Dribbled. More of a dribble.
I wish you would have played this song.
She packed my bags last night. Pre-flight.
When William Shatner covered it.
Well, I think that this is a new beat that they added to this.
I haven't heard this in forever.
She packed my bags last night. Pre-flight.
Still has more life.
Absolutely.
So this is not the version on an album I have called Golden Throats.
Oh, I have that one too, yeah.
Has some of the worst covers ever, including, I think, Leonard Nimoy doing the Ballad of Bilbo Baggins, but at least that's original content.
terrible.
Yeah.
By then.
And this is definitely better than Shatner's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Oh, you think so?
Oh, absolutely.
But is this
just for the organ?
I miss the earth.
Doesn't he end up screaming "Rocket Band" like out of nowhere?
That's okay.
So the question is this version better than this one? This is a very famous version too.
She packed my bags last night, pre-flight.
Is this William Hung?
It's William Hung. This is his big hit besides She Bangs.
9 a.m.
What? What's the name?
Okay.
Oh, you're not a fan?
It's fine, yeah.
At least this one kind of sounds like Elton John's version.
So
Sean, say something negative about this song.
Well, what do you want me to say?
You know it's terrible. Just say it's terrible.
Why don't you knock it off?
Why?
Cut it off.
I like it.
Pot it down, as you would say.
It's my wife.
Sean wants to cancel William Hung. Like
racist.
Like that other
Anybody.
musical
No, that song-
genius.
That song is fine.
Brian Wilson. William Hung also has a
That's a go.
sandbox in his living room because he's living on a beach, destitute, based on his musical genius.
You know, part of me used to feel bad for William Hung, and those that don't know, he's American Idol, and people laughed at him. But then he released all these albums and toured, and there's a story, a very famous story we heard, and we've talked about it on Drew and Mike, about he's kind of a diva when he played at the Palace.
He played at the Palace.
What's American Idol?
Halftime of a Pistons game, and he was a diva about it.
Oh, wow.
And the crowd booed him.
Will somebody tell me what
And then he
American
cried.
Idol is, please?
What? You don't know what American Idol is?
Is it some kind of...
Apparently it's still on. I didn't even know that. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like that show.
Know what it is.
I like the judges.
Oh, by the way, this John Reed, who was the villain in Rocket
Yeah,
Man,
boy, it's really
he
up to
was a
crawl.
judge on like Australian Idol recently.
Oh, okay. Whatever that is.
He also was the manager for Queen for a little while. So he, yeah. Anyway, so Rocket Man, you should check it out. It is a very different
I haven't
type
seen
of
it.
biopic.
I haven't seen it. It's a
I was
musical,
not
right?
expecting. It's done in sort of like a musical style. A lot of breaking the fourth wall and all that other thing. But it's very good and it's very
You did like it, though.
education. I did like it.
Did you like the Queen one?
I did not see that. Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yeah.
I wanted to see that one because that was actually available on a free app, but I did pay the $3.99 for the Rocket. And I struggled because I could have watched it for $2.99 in SD, and I really thought. But since I watched it for the show, it's a business
This is what's
expense.
holding me up.
Sorry. I thought Spanx was what was holding
Not
you
that
up.
no. Actually, a
Or braces,
No.
as Elton John would say.
brassiere, really. More of a girdle.
A man's ear?
It's a man's ear with a
bro?
girdle.
You
It's
gonna see
both.
the Elvis movie?
Probably not.
Absolutely not.
I probably could use a girdle.
See, out of all of them, that's actually the only one that I'm actually kind of interested in.
Now, why Elvis over
Unfortunately
Freddie
not,
Mercury
really.
or Elton John?
Just because I
Any
think
of this.
that the story of Elvis dying on the can is really funny, and I want to see how they put that in the
They're
movie.
not going to see. That's my
So-
problem with it. There's so many great, insane stories about Elvis, and there's not going to be any of those in the movie.
You know, my favorite Drew and Mike drop of all time is the Elvis one.
What is on the
Rip your tongue out by the roots.
Yeah.
Not all you guys, but just you guys. People are reading things in newspapers. It's not true.
He said it was damaging to his doctor who was giving him tons of drugs.
Some said to Colonel Tom Parker to
Right, Sean?
Can I just do like ASMR
Mama?
underneath this show? Would that be all right?
and then
Put yourself to sleep.
Yeah.
yeah. And so
All
you
right,
should
fine,
check
fine.
out. You should check
The
out.
adult in the room wants us to straighten up.
Oh, sorry.
No. I just have it.
You should check
tight
out Living
deadline.
Color. They
I'm
do a
sorry.
tune called Elvis is Dead.
I have a tight deadline. I don't want to rush y'all. I could say goodbye now.
The guy named John LaJoie who made a song called Michael Jackson is Dead.
Oh, well, that also is true. We want to thank, so Kate Bush, we'll move on. We love to get your suggestions for Room 7609. Please send them to mlsoulofdetroit@gmail.com. We want to thank both our advertisers. Please give them business, encourage them to continue supporting the show. And we want to thank our donors, which once again is Bryant. We don't think that Bryant is the only one who's figured out how to do this. It's really easy. You just go to our website, and once you're there, Mark, what will people find?
A little donate button. It's pretty simple, yeah. mlsoulofdetroit.com, right in the top. In the toolbar.
Okay.
So if you like clicking buttons, make sure to go on our YouTube channel, ML Soul of Detroit. It's on the channel called ML Elric, and we post a Soul of Detroit video every single week. And if you like the video, make sure to leave a like on it, and also be sure to subscribe to the channel. And next to the subscription button, there is also a bell that will notify you whenever we come out with new videos. You have the option to select occasional reminders or reminders for every single video that we make so that you can always come and see our show. Thank you.
And you want to click every one because we only put out gold.
Who doesn't like clicking
buttons? That was
buttons?
awesome, Patrick. Good job.
Thank you. I've heard YouTubers say that like a million times.
Thank you.
Time for a couple of shameless plugs. It'd be great if you could follow me on Twitter. That's @Elric, ELRICK, and you'll get notifications when the show is getting ready to go live, as well as when new content is posted. And you can also follow Patrick on, what are your social media handles, Patrick?
I have @PSchmitty99 for Twitter. That's SCHMITTY 99. And on Facebook, it's just Patrick Schmitz. And on Instagram, it's Patrick Schmitz. Now, here's the difficult part. It's Patrick Schmitz 2.
Okay, that wasn't so difficult. What are they teaching these kids in school these days? We'd appreciate if you'd subscribe, rate, and post a comment on our podcast and all of our content. We love getting your feedback as well. Tanya writes, Dear ML, I really enjoyed last week's interview with Pete Lucido. If you did not catch it, Pete Lucido is the Macomb County prosecutor who is under fire for his leadership style. We got a full display of Pete's, shall we say, head down, full speed ahead style on the show. A very dynamic episode. Tanya says, as someone not from Macomb, can you explain the real root cause and the schism between the prosecutor, Mr. Lucido, and Macomb County executive, Marc Hackle? Is it because Hackle is a Democrat and thinks Lucido, who is a Republican, wants to run for his executive job? Is it to blunt Lucido's higher political pursuits in general? I really have no idea. It just seems like there's something more calculating to the beef, which went unsaid during the interview. I'm sure you're privy to at least the gossip and rumors of what is really going on here. Please tell. Well, I think you have two very headstrong, very confident, very ambitious, very righteous guys who both feel like they should probably be able to do what they want in Macomb County. And
well put.
There was recently a court case resolved in which Pete Lucido prevailed.
Big win for him.
Yes, Macomb County Executive Marc Hackle was trying to prevent him from spending some money that had been allocated. This fight went all the way to the Michigan Supreme Court, and just after our show, a day or two after the show, the Supreme Court decided that Mr. Lucido should be able to spend that money that was allocated in the way that he feels is most appropriate. So, and you will not be surprised to know that I found out about that from a couple people, but also from Mr. Lucido himself saying, yes! So I think that's some of this is turf. And this is a topic that I plan to explore in a future edition of On Guard, my column at the Detroit Free Press, where the latest edition took a look at some crazy stuff going on in the 13th Congressional District, which these districts have recently been redrawn. So if you don't know where you are, join the rest of us. But basically, the 13th District goes from the Grosse Pointes to Detroit to some of Western Wayne to downriver. And this is the one where Shri Tanadar has been inundating us with commercials and on social media. Adam Ollier, a state senator, has also been inundating us with mail and with social media hits and with commercials. And there's a couple other folks in the race. But really, this traffic that's been coming down on social media, a lot of it has been paid for by special interest groups that talk about Mr. Ollier's topics. They spout the same rhetoric that he does. They have his same talking points, but really what they care about is whether or not he's going to be a friend of Israel if he's elected to Congress. And so I explored some of the dynamics of that race, some of the money coming into there. Sri Tanadar says, I'm going to spend $5 million to get elected, but then he bitches when somebody else raises $5 million to try and get elected. So a lot of moving parts in that story. But one of the more interesting questions that we raised was whether or not some legislation Mr. Ollier sponsored having to do with a gravel pit in Metamora may be the beginning of this pipeline that has resulted in, God, it's got to be at least $4 million from outside special interests supporting his congressional campaign.
I have a question for you. Is according to the script here, is this part of your promoting your superlative journalism? Because that's what it reads right here.
No. What it says is it says more shameless promoting.
Sorry, I missed that.
Of my superlative journalism.
The mic actually blocked out as I'm looking at it. Shameless. Sorry about that.
No, it absolutely is, because I think
it is superlative. We talked about that last week. Yeah. Every week I feel like we're talking about that because he keeps it going.
ML, did you feel
in the same way that Matt Bissonette would not turn his bass down for a solo, neither will I turn down the volume of Justice.
Okay. I thought you were going to say
Batman.
turn your fingers off.
My other analogy would be you're Brian Wilson and Sean's Murray.
Oh.
You guys think you're good? Let's go. Fellas, as a team, we're unbeatable. Let's go.
Sounds like
you're
you.
doing wonderful, Al. Enunciate. Let's
And
go.
no one's
Forget
listening.
it.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll leave, Brian, if you're going to give me a bad time. Let's go. Let's go. I don't care if it does. Let's go. Come on. You got any guts? Let's see it. I don't care how many people are here.
I got 1 year left and your big loud voice is killing me.
I got 3,000 words.
I'm sorry I'm yelling. Okay, let's go. Loosen up, Al. Watch your flatting. Let's roll. Happy? Loosen it up, fellas.
Come on, let's see them bells.
Okay.
Boys, come on. I'm gonna vote.
So, okay, Audrey and I leave, okay?
No.
Yeah. No. He has no.
And Audrey is his wife, their mother. Yeah. But I love that when he says, I got 3,000 words, and Brian comes and says, that's only 82, Dad. He's like, I got 3,000 more. I got 3. You know, the crazy thing about Brian Wilson is he was a center fielder in his high school baseball team and the team quarterback.
Very athletic, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, and he's a big guy.
He is a big guy.
Dennis was the athletic one. He was the surfer and the guy who was always buff.
How'd that work out?
Yeah, well, it's, like Matt said, at some point you got to realize all those women in the hotel room is not sustainable. But can you? I mean, those are kind of key leadership. Can you see Brian Wilson being the guy in the huddle who says he seems like more of a Matt Stafford type, who I guess also turned out to be a pretty successful quarterback as well.
Well, all you got to do is get him on the beach.
Yeah, and he knows where to get good deals on the cell phones.
Did you see the new Madden rating for the quarterbacks?
Does this involve video games?
Yes.
Where do they put him?
I have not.
So they put Tom Brady at like 97, which makes sense. But they put Matthew Stafford, the Super Bowl winning quarterback, they gave him an 85. So
too high?
Way too low, in my opinion. I think they put a good coach, good team around him, and he succeeds.
That sounds like a great topic for the Carlos and Sean podcast.
There you go.
Not really. But we are going to talk about quarterbacks thanks to a journalist we're going to have on. His name is Jason Reed. He wrote a book called The Rise of the Black Quarterback. We're going to kind of get into that and what all that means, the tropes, trying to say, hey, you're black and you played quarterback in high school, but why don't you come play receiver for us?
Yeah, you're an athlete.
At Michigan State, yeah. That happens obviously a lot less, but he this book is sort of chronicles the changes. And
my God, I'm drawing a blank on the Ravens quarterback.
Oh, Lamar Jackson.
Lamar Jackson. Yeah, I mean, the talk him in the draft was he'll be a great receiver.
Yeah.
He'll be a great receiver.
Yeah.
And now he's just
playing MVP level quarterback. Yeah.
Exactly.
Who knew?
Yeah. Doug Williams knew.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's our show, and this is our show. I mean, that's our show for the podcast with Carlos, and now you have to say what?
There's only one thing left to say. I don't know why you didn't just go ahead and say it.
No, it's not my job to say that.
Carlos, take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Critics
Fans and audiences are cheering the soul of Detroit.
It's gonna blow your mind.
It's the summer's biggest spectacle.
It's gonna be a wild ride.
Rated R, now playing.